I want to tell you a story, though, actually, because you talked earlier a little bit about this notion of being able to affect somebody's life or say something or recognize that a nickel drops in someone. I do a lot of workshops, and I did a workshop in Abu Dhabi, and I had done a workshop previously in Doha, and as I got closer and closer to the workshop, I was told by the organizers, yes, no, people are signing up and it's going very well, but don't expect any women. And I said, why? And they said, well, it's really not, it's not what is expected of women, to go into the arts or be an actress. It's really not, it's not appropriate. People really look to science and law. And I was like, okay. So they kept saying it over and over. And then I got to Doha and I walked into this classroom, and out of 28, there were 13 women. And I looked at the organizer. And then they asked me a couple weeks later, would you do another workshop in Abu Dhabi? And I said, yes, under one condition. And they said, what? And I said, the entire class has to be women. So that happened. And there were two sets of women from two sets of universities, one slightly more religious than the other. They all were wearing burqas, some, not all, many of them. And like me being that shy kid in the back of the workshop with Jack Lemmon, I'm always looking for the shy one in the corner. And there was this girl who was over there with her friend. Her friend had gotten up, and they were doing scenes. They had prepared scenes from Shakespeare, and they were doing it in Arabic, and it was so interesting, and it was moving, and it was wild. But I kept seeing this girl who was like, you could tell that she wanted to be a part of it, but she was really terrified and nervous. And so we took a break, and when we came back, I was like, all right, who's going to get up next? Who's going to get up next? What about you? And she went, and I said, why? And she went, I don't know any Shakespeare. And I said, well, it doesn't have to be Shakespeare. And she said, what do you, it doesn't have to be Shakespeare? I said, no, not at all, you can do anything you want. She went, oh, I was told it had to be Shakespeare. I said, no, I don't know who told you that. So then she said, well, I said, do you know anything? And she said, well, I might know something from fried green tomatoes. And I thought, wow. So I asked her if she'd get up. And she got up and she did this monologue, and it was pretty perfunctory, and she was very awkward, and she was quite aware of us, but I was listening to the content. And the content was quite powerful. So when she finished, I sat her down and I said, can you tell us what is going on in this scene? What is this woman grappling with? What is she dealing with? And she said, well, she's in a relationship with a man who abuses her, and she's afraid that he's going to start to abuse the child. I said, that's pretty powerful stuff. I said, I want you to do it again, only this time, don't think about us, don't think about performing it, don't think about anything. Just try as best you can to connect to the story and to share your feelings. I said, you don't have to move, just sit right where you are, just do it again. So she did it again. And something started to happen where she just started to tell the story. And there was a line that she had that she'd only said once the first time she did it, but this time she said it 5 times. And each time she said it, she hit her fist. And she said, and every time he beat me, I thought of God. And every time he beat me, I thought of God. And then tears flew out of her eyes. I felt the whole room go. And it was an extraordinary moment. And when we got to the end, she stayed there, and I asked her, we can all tell you why that was different for us. Can you tell us why it was different for you? And she said something that said everything about what's wrong in this region in the world. She said, when you asked me to share my feelings, this is something I'm never asked. And I got a letter from her about 9 months later that she's trying to get to London to study to be an actress. And that makes everything worthwhile. That kind of moment in a workshop where, and by the way, it's not even about whether kids want to go into the arts. I have my own foundation now precisely because of what Jack Lemmon taught me, which was that he had this wonderful philosophy that if you've done well in the business you wanted to do well in, then it's your obligation to spend a good portion of your time sending the elevator back down And I always thought that was a great term. But it's also about what the tools of theater and arts and culture, as well as the artists, can do for a kid who has no self-esteem, for somebody who has never collaborated before, for somebody who's never stood up for themselves. I think all of those things, all of those kind of experiences for somebody who was in the back of the classroom and shy and terrified, having some kind of identity crisis, who suddenly through a poetry project or a theater workshop finds a way to express themselves, finds a way to stand up. That's better for all of us. Because we've all been in circumstances where we wish the person we were dealing with had somewhere along the line learned to communicate a little bit fucking better. Right?